me and I don't know, maybe another guy or two, they were from the Truman Library.
Mm.
And they were sisters, I remember at the time. And I think I was supposed to have gotten a copy of that, but I don't think I ever did.
Oh, really? Was it the Quilters? Oh, no, they're from the Truman Library. I'm thinking of different.
Truman Library, uh-huh.
Yeah, I know there was like Quilters in Mountain County that went around and talked to World War II veterans, but I don't know if they ever got to you or Debrick. Like, Debrick's a cool guy.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I mean, to start off, like, when and where were you born?
I was born at Pleasanton, Kansas, January 20 of 1924.
1924.
And this was made the same year I was.
Oh, really? Wow, is that the
1924 silver dollar.
silver dollar?
Mm-hmm.
Wow, I got a couple Liberty heads at home.
I don't remember where I ran across that. When I found that, I said, well, my God, I'm going to save that one.
Yeah, absolutely.
1924.
Wow. And do you remember when the stock market crashed in 1929? Do you have any memory of when it happened?
No, I don't really have any memory of that, to speak. You know, I was just like 6 years old.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember people talking about it. But I do remember the Dust Bowl and the Depression of the 30s.
What was the Dust Bowl like?
Oh, it was terrible, terrible. Dust Bowl, they called it the Dust Bowl, and everything, you know, crops it was hot and dry and had no rainfall hardly at all, and everything just burned up. The crops burned up, and people had a terrible time, you know, to make a living on a farm. So I know we had a hard time, but we did everything in the world to keep from going to food bank or something like that, but folks never did. I know we had neighbors that they called it commodities back in the 30s that got stuff, you know, groceries, and got a lot of freebies, you know, but my folks never did. They wouldn't accept anything like that at all.
Wow.
They had too much pride, I guess. But we did everything to make a living and make a dollar. You know, we raised chickens, turkeys, guineas, sheep, hogs, anything in the world. And I remember my mom used to, we always had around 150, 200 turkeys every year, and they roamed free mostly. And my mom would dress them for Thanksgiving and Christmas, and she'd get 50 cents a piece for cleaning a turkey, dressing it ready to put in the oven. I mean, ready to put in the oven. No pin feathers or anything. She'd pick all the pin feathers out of them, and 50 cents a piece to dress a turkey.
50 cents a piece. Wow. That was bigger money back then?
Oh, it was a lot of money back then. 50 cents was, you know, worth quite a bit more than it is today. But,
wow. But were you the only child, or do you have any siblings?
I had one sister.
One sister?
She was 2 years older than me. And she worked for the government and most of her life. And of course, I was in service, and that's why my mom had to sell or give everything away when my dad died, because there wasn't anybody there at home to help.
Yeah. Oh, man.
So.
And when you graduated, when did you graduate from Pleasanton?
1941.
41? How many was that?
Right into the military then. I got my draft notice. See, everybody got a draft notice when they were 18, I think. I was classified 1A. So I said, well, I'm going to have to go somewhere sometime, so I'm going to beat him to the punch.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if I told you that or not. But anyhow, I jumped on a bus and rode to Fort Leavenworth and enlisted. And
bus from Pleasanton that went to Fort Leavenworth, or you had to go somewhere specific for the bus?
I jumped on a bus in Pleasanton and rode it to Kansas City, then transferred to go on to Leavenworth.
I see.
And I told them I wanted to enlist, and asked me what branch of service I wanted, so I was able to pick the branch of service I wanted, and that's the reason I enlisted. I said I don't want to wait to be drafted and go into the infantry. I knew I didn't want to be in the infantry,
Mm-hmm.
so that's why I decided to enlist.
And you were in the Army?
Army Signal Corps.
Huh.
Excuse me.
Oh, you're fine. Bless you.
Oh, thank you. He sent me to Sacramento, California to take my basic. That was a Signal Corps training camp at Camp Kohler, California. It was at the beginning of the war, they moved all the Japanese people inland from the coast, and that's where they moved them to Sacramento, California. They had tar paper covered shacks, and they turned that into a Signal Corps basic training camp. That's where I had my basic training.
Yeah.
But at the beginning of the war, they decided to move all the Japanese people away from the coast because they feared they might collaborate, with Japanese people. So they moved them all inland. And so, anyway, kind of odd the way things work out. But my sister worked for the government. She went to Japan when the war ended, and she went over there working for the government, and she met this Japanese young lady, was in high school at the time, and she was born in California. She was a naturalized American citizen, but her folks went over there on a visit when the war broke out, and they were trapped and couldn't come home.
Yeah.
They were American citizens, all her parents, family, But my sister met her and struck up a relationship with her. She helped her come back to the United States. Then when the war was over, and she lived with my parents until she finished high school.
Oh, wow.
So, and she turned out to be one of the best friends. I still communicate with her. She lives in Las Vegas. Well, it's not Las Vegas, Henderson, Nevada, suburb of Las Vegas.
Wow.
Now I still communicate with her.
So she went to Pleasanton and stayed with your
Pleasant
parents?
High School. I think sent her back a year, but she still, she knew enough English that she could get by.
That's a pretty cool story.
So, yeah, it's kind of interesting, that. And I was against it to begin with, but she turned out to be like one of the family, really.
Wow, that's incredible.
She's just a very sweet lady.
Did she get treated okay going to Pleasanton? And, concerning the times?
Yes and no. They accepted her, but of course they weren't very friendly to her, and I can understand that. I wouldn't have been either at the time. But anyway.
Oh, that's really interesting.
Uh-huh.
Do you remember when Pearl Harbor happened? What you were doing that Sunday?
No, I didn't even know where Pearl Harbor was when that happened.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't remember ever hearing of Pearl Harbor. But anyway, I spent some time around Pearl Harbor. In fact, I was stationed there at Fort Schaffner. That's right across the road from, it's actually almost downtown Honolulu. Fort Schaffner. And I was stationed there right across the road from Fort Schaffner at an American intercept station. We intercepted Japanese messages and sent them into decoding to be decoded. And that way, the Japanese didn't know we had a code at the time, but they had broken the Japanese code.
Wow.
And so... You've heard of the code talkers, American Indians?
Yeah, the Navajo, how do they pronounce that, Navajo?
That's kind of interesting too. That
yeah, it is.
They used them to do a lot of radio work because the Japanese couldn't begin to understand that.
Yeah, oh, I bet.
Call them the code talkers.
Code talker. Wind talkers, I think that's another, because there was a movie made about them I saw a few years ago. Oh, that's something. When did you go overseas? 43 or 44?
See, I enlisted in 42. guess it's 43 went overseas, I think. Just in a year, I took my basic training and went right on overseas. I was over there 44, 45. I spent 2 years overseas.
Oh, I see.
And I came home at 45.
Huh. What were the places you went to throughout the Pacific? Just Pearl Harbor?
Pearl Harbor, then we from there, they sent my outfit. We talked about it being down under, talked about going down under the equator, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Went from Pearl Harbor to Saipan. And stayed there until the war was over.
I see.
Which was fine with me, because I was on a permanent base, you know, for communications. The reason they bypassed the Philippines to take the Marianas Islands, we had the B-29s at that time ready to go, and they knew that we could reach Japan, go round trip from Saipan to Japan and back,
oh, I see.
and bomb it.
Huh.
That's why they decided to upskitch those islands to take from Saipan so they could establish that B-29 base there.
Oh, absolutely.
Then he had another one right across 5 miles of water was Tinian, was another island in the Marianas, had B-29 bases on both of them.
Wow.
So.
Huh. What was Saipan like? Was it kind of like all the other Pacific islands?
You know, Saipan was mountains. It was a volcanic island.
Oh.
But now Tinian was flat. So, yeah, Saipan was volcanic, and it had lots of natural caves, and we found Japanese soldiers in the cave right behind the outfit I was in, up on the side of Mount Tapacho. Was a mountain there, they call it Mount Tapacho.
Mm-hmm.
And after the war was over, we found out some Japanese were still in that cave, just above the area that I was based in.
Wow.
So, yeah, I think there were 5 of them in that cave, and they sent an interpreter up to talk to them, and they surrendered, came down. They wouldn't surrender till they had a bath and changed their uniform, came down in full dress uniform. I still remember that.
Wow.
I think there were 5 of them, and I went up in that cave myself with a bunch of other guys after they found them and got them out. And they had magazines and all kind of information out of our day room.
Really?
They had confiscated to take up there for their own use, you know.
Wow. Yeah, they're very, have a lot of pride. Wow.
They're pretty ingenious, you know.
Mm-hmm. Oh, absolutely.
And this cave is funny how it was camouflaged. It had a lot of trees, you know, outside, and the way they had a rope. There was a ledge up in there. They let a rope down off that ledge, and they pull it back up behind them, and you'd never know anything up there, you know.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Well, that's something. What was your duties for the Signal Corps?
Well, I started out as a radio operator, but ended up as a switchboard operator. And of course, it was all involving communications.
Oh, I see. My grandfather, he was a linesman for the Marines. I guess that's sort of similar, or like the...
Yeah, we had linemen, and a good friend of mine went over on that trip with me. Him and his wife did it. He was a lineman, and they put up those field wires, telephone wires, you know, once they got on the base. But we had wires strung all over the island, and we had teletype and everything set up, you know, on the island. And where I worked, we had an underground shelter, bomb shelter. And, you know, it was protected over the top of a lot of overburden and rock and stuff, you know, and we had underground shelter we'd go in, where a phone switchboard was, and our teletype and everything was in there underground. And pretty high security.
Wow. That's where you spend most of your time during the year in Saipan?
Right, yeah. And we split up, you know, we had to do shift work and kind of rotated around different shifts, you know, and had somebody had to man the switchboard 24 hours a day because all the communications on the island went through our switchboard. We had the central switchboard
Yeah.
for the island. All the other communications went through our switchboard.
Mm-hmm.
And the commanding general of the island, he had I remember he had what they call a drop. But he called, wanted to get on the phone with somebody. He had a drop and it had a red light on it. A little drop, but it'd come in, that little thing would drop down, you'd hear a click, and it had a red light letting you know it was a general, commanding general.
Oh, wow.
He had top priority.
Oh, absolutely. In case it was General MacArthur or somebody.
No, this general, I remember his name was Jarman, Jarman, General Jarman.
Jarman.
I don't know if it's listed in the archives somewhere or not, but his last name was General Jarman. Jarman.
Was he a pretty cool guy? Pretty good at his job, or was he mostly
I don't
quiet?
ever seeing him or talking to him other than on the switchboard.
Oh, wow. Huh. Were you ever in harm's way at all as a underground, like any explosions above you, or you guys were pretty clear out of?
Well, we had a
danger?
secured area, but still, we went in D-Day plus about 2 weeks. Still had a lot of Japanese on the island. Only had about half the island taken when I went in.
Mm-hmm.
So there was lots of activity, but fortunately, I never got hurt. I never fired a shot. Never got hit. So,
That's good. Huh. Wow.
I was exposed. I know. I had standing guard duty too, pretty often.
What was that like?
But pretty boresome and monotonous and kind of scary too, because you never know what's out there in the dark.
Mm-hmm.
But we had to stand guard duty around the clock as long as I was there.
Wow. Huh. Were they ever worried about the volcano erupting, or? Huh. Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, I never met anyone who's been over in Saipan before. There's not too many Saipan veterans left out there. Huh. What was it like when the war ended, when they announced the war was over?
Well, it's almost hard to believe. Went on for so long, but
Mm-hmm.
a lot of jubilation, and the guys, most everybody got drunk. Enlisted men, all they could buy was beer. And only officers could get whiskey, hard liquor,
Yes.
and they'd sell it to the GIs. I remember guys went together and bought a bunch from some of the officers. I wasn't in on it, but I know what they did. And the officers would get $65 a fifth for it. Officers, had advantage and they made lots of money.
Yeah, no kidding. Good Lord.
$65 a bottle.
$65 a bottle. Gosh.
Yeah, when the war was over, I remember that.
Wow. That was pretty happy time when they announced, Japan surrendered.
Wow.
Oh,
yeah.
What was life like for you after the war when you came back home? Your father passed away and mother had to sell the farm and you moved up to Kansas City right away?
Oh, yes, I had to. And I got married pretty soon after I got home, too, and started a family, so I had to get a job and go to work.
Mm-hmm.
But, the woman I met and married, her dad used to work for Ventilated Awning in Kansas City, Kansas. And anyway, it was one of her aunts and uncles that had a farm down at Pleasant that my dad, I used to farm, and that's how I got acquainted with her, through her aunt and uncle.
Wow. Oh, that's something. Do you ever live back down in Pleasanton ever again, or?
No. So.
Kansas City and then Fontana afterwards,
Right.
I imagine.
I never did like living in Kansas City, but I had to make a living.
Yeah, man, I bet it was kind of miserable up there.
But
I have a hard time being up there visiting.
all the crime and corruption, I didn't like it.
Was it pretty bad back then, even when you were younger?
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Murders and shooting and everything,
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's
And they
terrible.
had a big ride up there too. I don't remember what year it was. The blacks ride like they did over out in California.
Oh yeah, like with when Martin Luther King died on the plaza. I think that there was a deal going on with that. My dad grew up in Roland Park, and he said he remember when Martin Luther King died, there was a riot with a bunch of blacks in the plaza, 68.
Yeah, I don't remember what year it was, but I remember they had riots up there. Because I know I was working for Phillips at the time in refinery in Kansas City, Kansas,
Mm-hmm.
in Fairfax, Phillips Refinery.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I had to go to work at midnight one night. Got off work after days work. They wanted a bunch of guys come back at midnight. They had unit down or something. And there's a fellow lived out off of Leavenworth Road. And I got together. He was going to work too, and I lived further west than he. I said, I'll pick you up on the way in at midnight. Go to work at midnight.
Mm-hmm.
Anyhow, he got in. I had a .22 pistol laying beside me on the seat. He got in. I think he had a .38 something he got in with. We had to go right through Colored Town to get to the refinery, down in Fairfax.
Mm-hmm.
So, but we were prepared.
Oh gosh. Yeah, I tell you what. I mean, I have nothing against black people personally,
Well, I
but
don't
a lot of them are just dangerous. It's culture.
Well, that's just the way they live.
Yeah, like
But, I met several pretty nice black guys who worked at Phillips. In fact, I used to exchange Christmas cards with one
Oh, that's nice.
pretty regular, and his last name was Cloud,
Cloud.
Kane Cloud,
Wow.
and he had, I think, 3 kids, and every one of them went through KU. Went to KU and graduated from KU.
Oh, that's awesome.
The doctorate degree or something or other, every one of his kids.
Oh,
So
absolutely.
they respectable,
That's good. Yeah, a good friend of mine works for Jackson County Jail, and he said, 80% of the people who go through there are black and Hispanic. And, it's just a shame, the poverty level of that county, Jackson County.
Yeah. Well, they squawk about, what they call it, picking out people, on a road or highway or something, and say they what do they call it? Because they're black. What do they call that? I forget the term they use now.
There was a term they had in Lewisburg called Poor Devil's Hill, where like the blacks and the Hispanics and some of the Italians lived in Lewisburg. There was an area they all lived in Lewisburg, and they called it PD Hill, Poor Devil's Hill.
Huh. But many black people complain because they say they're picking on black people just because they're black,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know what you mean. All the deals with the police officers and stuff like that.
Yeah.
It's crazy turning on the news nowadays. It's just absolutely nuts.
Well, I don't know. Maybe I got off the subject here.
Oh no, you're fine.
I just don't want to.
But no, that's pretty much all the questions I have for you, unless you have anything else you want to add during your time in service.
Well, I don't know what I could add, but
How many was in your class at Pleasanton? Did you have a decent-sized class, or was it a small class?
in the 30s,
Mm-hmm. Or, I mean, like when you graduated in 41.
30-some people.
Oh, that's pretty good. I talked to this guy who went to Bucyrus High School. You know where Bucyrus is at?
Uh-huh.
He graduated in 42 with 3 boys and 1 girl. Like, that's a small school.
Right.
But that's something for back then. Of course, it was right down the street from Wea High School.
Mm-hmm.
Huh. Wow. But I'm pretty sure you're glad to be back